The Old Ones are said to have lost the war in heaven. That single sentence is repeated so often that it has hardened into assumed truth. But when you actually examine what the lore shows us, rather than what later civilizations believe, the story stops making sense. Because nothing about the end of the Old Ones looks like defeat. It looks like withdrawal. The Old Ones were not a conventional species. They were not empire builders in the human sense. They did not conquer worlds for territory or resources. They shaped reality itself. They engineered life not as a byproduct of war, but as a strategic tool. They manipulated the warp at a structural level. They built systems that still function tens of millions of years after their disappearance. And that last point is critical, because in Warhammer, nothing truly defeated simply vanishes without remains. The galaxy is full of corpses of dead civilizations. The Necrons preserve them. The Eldari mythologize them. The Imperium digs them up and mistakes them for relics. But the Old Ones left nothing. No bodies, no prisons, no enslaved remnants, no trophies, no shattered homeworlds. Every other power from the war in heaven left scars you can still point to. The Old Ones left absence. And absence in Warhammer is never accidental. We are told the Necrons defeated them. We are told the Citan devoured gods. We are told the Enslaver Plague finished the survivors. But notice how none of these explanations ever show us an ending. They are conclusions without evidence. The Necrons claim victory, yet even at their height they could not fully master the warp. The Citan are said to have fed on gods, yet the Old Ones were never warp entities in the way later gods are described. And the Enslaver Plague is invoked as a kind of narrative eraser, a convenient cosmic disaster that removes the need to explain what actually happened. But the Old Ones were not naive psychers. They were architects of psychic reality. Enslavers prey on uncontrolled psychic resonance, not on beings who designed the systems that generate it. To believe the Old Ones were simply overwhelmed by the very tools they perfected requires us to assume a level of incompetence that contradicts everything else we know about them. And then there is the Webway, the single most important piece of evidence that something else happened. The Webway is not just a transportation network. It is a transdimensional construct that exists partially outside real space and partially outside the warp. It resists chaos in ways no modern technology can replicate. It predates the Eldari and vastly exceeds their understanding of it. The Emperor himself, the most powerful human psyker to ever exist, could not rebuild it. He could only attempt to hijack a fragment of it, and that attempt nearly destroyed Terra. The Webway is not scaled for an empire. It is scaled for continuity. It stretches into sealed regions that are not damaged, not corrupted, not collapsed, but deliberately closed. These are not the scars of a retreat under fire. These are controlled locks. A species fleeing annihilation does not take the time to build exits that function flawlessly millions of years later. But a species executing an evacuation does. The war in heaven is described as reality-shattering, yet the Old One's greatest creations did not fail catastrophically. They were abandoned in working order. That alone should make you question the official narrative. Because if the Old Ones truly lost, if they were hunted down and exterminated, then why does their infrastructure remain intact while the galaxy around it rots? The answer may be that the galaxy rots because they left. The warp was not always the hellscape it is now. Even chaos acknowledges this. There was a time before the warp was dominated by predatory gods, before emotion crystallized into malign intelligence. That change coincides not with the birth of humanity, but with the disappearance of the Old Ones. They were not merely using the warp, they were regulating it, and when the regulators left, the system destabilized. Chaos did not conquer the galaxy. It inherited an unmanaged one. This reframes everything. The Aeldari did not doom the warp alone. They were the first major civilization to exist without the Old One's oversight. Their fall was not just moral decay, it was structural collapse in a system already failing. The Necrons did not win eternal dominion. They won a battlefield and lost reality. The Silent King's long exile suddenly looks less like guilt and more like fear. Fear of a galaxy spiraling toward an end state no one understands. And then there is the Emperor. The Emperor is often framed as humanity's greatest hope, but in this context he becomes something else entirely. He is a scavenger of abandoned designs. He knows fragments of Old One science. He understands just enough of the Webway to be dangerous. He tries to recreate a solution without knowing why it existed in the first place. His great crusade mirrors Old One logic without Old One restraint. His failure is not just personal, it is systemic. He is trying to run a machine whose creators are gone. And here pause for a moment, because this is the point where I want you to think about it yourself. If the Old Ones truly escaped rather than died, then everything that followed is a civilization-scale echo of abandonment. So ask yourself and tell me in the comments, without breaking immersion, do you think the galaxy is collapsing because chaos is winning, or because no one is left who understands how to keep reality stable? Now back to the theory. If the Old Ones escaped, where did they go? The most important thing to understand is that escape does not mean ascension. They did not become chaos gods. Chaos is reactive, emotional, parasitic. The Old Ones were none of those things. They were engineers. Their escape would not be upward into godhood, but outward, beyond the system entirely. The war in heaven was not just a conflict over territory. It was a conflict over how reality itself should function. The Necrons chose material permanence. The Old Ones chose adaptability. When the cost of maintaining the galactic system exceeded its viability, they did what no later species has ever been capable of doing. They disengaged. They did not win. They did not lose. They exited. The galaxy we see in 40K is not the battlefield after the war. It is the aftermath of abandonment. Every faction is fighting over infrastructure they barely understand. Chaos feeds on the unmanaged warp. The Imperium worships a corpse wired into a failing throne. The Aeldari hide in fragments of a network they cannot repair. The Necrons wake up to a reality that no longer obeys the rules they fought to preserve. And through it all, the Old Ones are absent, not erased. Their legacy is not their survival. It is the silence they left behind. Because in Warhammer, true defeat is not extinction. True defeat is being forgotten. And the Old Ones were not forgotten. They were deliberately removed from the story, and that is why the most dangerous possibility in 40K is not that the Old Ones are dead. It is that they are gone, and they chose to leave.